Good evening. Welcome in on this Sunday night of game week, the first one for the 2024 Missouri football season here on State of the Tigers, our weekly PowerMizzou.com show, brought to you by our friend James Carlton at State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves, Missouri. Want to welcome those of you who are going to be joining us here live. Ask you to like, comment, subscribe, do all the smart things. Normally, we talk football on this show. We're going to go ahead and do that. But also, we thought that this week would be the ideal time to bring my insurance agent on the show. And we could just talk a little bit of insurance with James Carlton. Normally, at the beginning, look, I give you guys the spiel, and we will run his information across the bottom of the screen throughout. But James, what's going on, man? You've been sponsoring this for like a year, so we figured it was probably time to just bring you on and say hey and let you talk Missouri football.
Well, good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for having me. And first, I just want to start off by thanking you guys. I mean, there is a huge appetite, at least for me, and I think I could speak on behalf of many of your subscribers, for Mizzou content. And you guys bring it every day, and we're grateful for that because I consume every bit of it. So I'm very grateful for that. And we're also grateful it's game week. You can only break down the stuff that's going on in the spring and fall so much, but we're very excited for game week. I'll be at Missouri State this Thursday evening, so I'm looking forward to that. And just to remind your listeners, if your insurance is with your friend, your father, your mother, your sister, we get it, right? We're probably not going to get an opportunity. But if it's not, particularly if it's with an online company, just by giving us a shot, we're going to donate $20 to NIL on your behalf. So we're all huge fans here at our office. We want to support this momentum that's going on in Columbia. We want to compete with the Georgias, the Alabamas, and dare I say the Texases. So let's continue the momentum. All you need to do is go to carltoninsurance.net, get a quote, or call us at 314-961-4800 and get a quote, and just mention Power Mizzou, and we will donate $20 on your behalf to NIL.
See, I didn't have to read that because James just told you about it. So he did my job. That's fantastic. I need to have more people just offer to do my job for me. Things will get much better. But I mean, seriously, we encourage people to do business with like people like them, our own. So James, just how did you become a Missouri fan? Like give these people your background because you're one of the bigger ones I know. So how'd this all start?
It's funny. I actually went to high school in Texas. And I went to Mizzou not knowing one single person. I wanted to be in sports media, following your guys' footsteps. And here I am now. Glorious debut here.
Well, we both wanted to be in insurance, so it all didn't work out at all.
So I went to the same high school for Mizzou fans. This is a name from the past that Jason Simpson went to. And also for our St. Louis fans that Danny Amendola went to, and also the Cardinals first baseman right now, Paul Goldschmidt. So big high school just north of Houston called the Woodlands. Went there, and I honestly, I grew up in St. Louis until I was 12, so I always followed Mizzou basketball. I never watched any Mizzou football until Corby Jones. Got a little bit hooked then, but I got really hooked in 2003 when Brad Smith, did what he did in Nebraska. That was epic, and I was just hooked since. And then, fast forward to the Chase Daniel years, 07, I was fortunate to go to all those home games. I went to Ole Miss for the Oxford game. I went to the Illinois game in St. Louis. I went to the championship game in San Antonio, and even the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. So that was a dream scenario. But I think what's going to lie ahead for us this season might even top that. And I have every intention to go to as many games as my wife will allow me to go
to. What position group, I guess, are you most excited for this year?
I was actually going to ask you guys real quick, if you had to rank your top 3 position groups that you have the most confidence in, and then the top 3 position groups you have the most concerns in, I'd be curious what your thoughts are there.
I'll let Jarod take the most confident ones because he's the guy everybody already knows I'm kind of the curmudgeon, so I'll take the negative stuff.
Hey, Jarod was the curmudgeon against the Tennessee team, Middle Tennessee State last year, and he was right. Yeah, he was right.
I'd go obviously quarterback, receiver, and it's a toss-up between running back and the offensive line, to be honest with you. I mean, they've got something good there. I'll go offensive line, just because of the continuity we've seen what they got there with the center to right tackle, and then everybody's had great reviews on Marcus Bryant and Caden Green. So I'll go with the offensive line 3.
All right, the question mark, I'll just go with the head coach. he said last week the biggest concern is replacing 2 NFL guys at cornerback. So I think you got to go there first. I'm going to go defensive tackle second because they lost 4 of their top 5 guys, I think, last year. Like Marquise Graciel, you hope he made the jump. Chris McClellan, I know the potential is there, but if you look like in 2 years, he hasn't yet been the productive guy they hope he can. And then the third one for me is just the kicking game. Let's see.
Yeah.
Like, because I don't, you don't know what you have in practice. I don't care how many 57-yarders you hit in warmups. It's different when there's 80,000 people out there that don't want you to make it. So yeah, that's kind of our side of it. But like, I know you've had a chance actually to you've done a little bit of work with some of these guys. So you got to be excited to see the wide receivers. That's got to be your guys, right? That's
from a confidence level. And you guys have me pretty high on a guy named Joshua Manning right now from your coverage. So from a confidence level, I mean, that wide receiver room is so deep. It's just like, are there enough ways to feed all the mouths right now? Because there's so many. I mean, we're talking about Marquise Johnson coming off the bench. You're talking about a guy just 2 years ago that we had all the hype on was Mekhi Miller. And then now we have Joshua Manning in the fold and the 2 freshmen coming in Crutchfield and Madison. So that room's loaded. And quarterback would be I had the same as Jarod, just flipped. I had wide receiver 1, quarterback 2, and then offensive line 3. I'm very bullish on this offensive line. I mean, they have the get off the bus look to them, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, between Bryant, Green, I mean, Armand Mimbu, is this his 3rd year getting real action? I think it is, right? Didn't he see action?
He's true junior.
I mean, unbelievable. And everybody says, including you guys, he's just an absolute freak athlete. That offensive line, I'm very bullish on. And concern-wise, yeah, I mean, you got to replace those defensive backs in the secondary. And then, of course, you know, it's really tough to replace Darius Robinson. I mean, from a leadership standpoint and so forth. And I think that's a bigger replacement issue in the running back room than maybe just pure stats is the leadership Cody brought. I mean, just those stories you heard about it, getting all the blood drained from him last year. I mean, just what a warrior. And so was Tyler Beatty the year before and Larry Roundtree, you know, before that. So, I mean, or 2 years before with Beatty. But, you know, I'm not that concerned about the running back productivity. And then, you know, you guys had mentioned the kickers. I think the biggest thing is, can Mizzou improve in the red zone? I mean, they have this 6'8" tight end that they really flashed toward the latter part of the year. Let's use him. And then I don't know if you guys saw Chase Daniel. I'm a nerd. He was breaking down the 07 KU game at Arrowhead. He was broke down about 12 plays, 2 of which were like on the 4-yard line. And they were very creative red zone plays on getting touchdowns. And so these weren't big guys necessarily. I think one was Washington. Maybe another one was Perry. I can't recall. But, I mean, it's just a matter of creativity. And can Kirby get more creative in the red zone and turn more of those into 6 points instead of 3? That's going to be a differentiator. And the other thing I just wanted to mention, and I'll step off and let the pros talk, is everybody's, you know, regarding Carson Beck as the go-to quarterback in this league. And he should be. I mean, he had an unbelievable year, and he's going to be probably a number 1 overall pick next year. But his stats and Brady Cook's stats, if you break them down, they're not that much different. I would just say, Brady, you limited the interceptions last year, but boy, were they some costly ones. That one at the end of the LSU first half, we don't talk about it much, but it really just kind of flipped the script there. And I think it was their stud defensive linebacker that snagged it from them
Harold
too.
Perkins.
Yeah, that's right. And then, of course, we all remember the fluky play in Georgia, which I was there. I could barely see it because I mean, these SEC stadiums, I had to have binoculars to see what was going on down there. I was all the way at the top. But, you know, if Brady Cook, obviously he really limited his turnovers, and he's a warrior himself. And I can't wait to see what he has in store for us this year. But if those interceptions can come at a less timely time as well, I think that'll bode well for the Tigers. And I can't be more excited. I'll be there Thursday night to Eli's, you know, to satisfy Eli and make sure that all the fans are filling up that stadium. And I can't wait.
Doing your part.
Continue to follow your guys' coverage, and I appreciate you having me on tonight. And again, any listeners out there, there's no hard pressure sales. If you're a Tiger fan, we're going to support your team one way or the other. Just get a quote at carltoninsurance.net. or call 314-961-4800.
There you go. Again, it'll be running across the bottom of the screen. We can't let James hang out here all show because, look, I think he knows more about this team than either one of us do.
No, that's not
He wants
true.
to be in sports media, so we can't have him take our job. Just one last thing. On Friday afternoons, when people call your office, which Friday afternoon is it going to be, your assistant handling things because you're on the road? Like, which road games you hit?
Well, here I appreciate you teeing this up for us. We have a very tenured team here at our office, and a lot of Tiger fans too, but very tenured. So anybody here can help and assist in a very timely fashion. These aren't rookies. They've been here a long time. They know what they're doing, and they're eager to help you guys save money on your insurance, put yourselves in a better position. But more importantly, let's just make that donation to NIL. We want to create this activity within our office and then give back to the university as well. And we know how important it is. I mean, it's an arms race right now, and we want to contribute to it.
All right, James, appreciate you, man. Thanks for everything you've done with us. And hopefully by next summer, your golf game and my golf game is a little bit better than it maybe was in the past.
I have way more confidence in the Tigers making the CFP than me breaking 80 anytime soon. See you guys.
All right, buddy. Appreciate you. That is James Carlton, State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves, Missouri. Again, 314-961-4800, carltoninsurance.net, facebook.com/Carlton Insurance. Just James has done a ton for us over the last couple of years. So wanted to bring him on. And again, you make that call, you're helping out the Mizzou NIL stuff. And I promise you're getting a good deal. I'm saving over $100 a month on my insurance because I just switched with, and I'm working with James. So, little bit of a commercial, but also a big Mizzou fan. So wanted to let you guys hear from him. And now with Jarod, we got a depth chart today. We got a depth chart. I counted before we started this show. 31 names listed on offense, 37 names listed on defense. Like, basically, we got a depth chart, but what we really got was a list of everybody that might possibly play in the game.
Yeah. I will say this is my third season. This is probably the clearest depth chart. There's a lot less ors than I normally see.
There were still some that got thrown in there, though, that you're like,
some ors, and then there was some media asking questions about stuff that didn't have ors, and then Drink was just like, what are you talking about? They definitely have ors. And we're like, that's not what the paper says. But yeah, it's a nice snapshot of who's possibly could play. I mean, like, someone who stood out for me was seeing Trajan Greco on that list, just because that's a freshman they've talked about, who's also apparently I seen in practice maybe a week or two ago when they let us do the full practice. I seen him, take a couple snaps at safety, but I was just thinking that was more of a numbers things for whatever they were doing for that drill. But apparently he's been moved to the safeties full time. So, I mean, that's what you guys, I know a lot of you want to see, is what freshmen can kind of make that leap already.
The thing that stood out to me, probably one on each side. First of all, Nate Noel or Marcus Carroll listed at running back. Now, I'm not surprised they listed him that way. You got two graduate transfers. Marcus Carroll, 7th leading rusher in the country, led the country in carries per game last year. Like, even if, but Drinkwood said Nate Noel's going out there first. That means he's the starting running back. Now, Marcus Carroll may get the same number of carries. He may end up with more carries because he may be better. But right now, Nate Noel, the starting running back. Then on defensive line, like you said, Marquise Graciela is listed as a co-backup with Sterling Webb behind Chris McClellan. And so somebody asked Drinkwitz, what did Chris McClellan do to win that job? And he said, well, McClellan and Christian and Marquise Graciela really have separated themselves as the top three. So again, we have a piece of paper. There's a story up on the site. It's listed there. It's an idea, but that's about all it is.
Yeah. I mean, but I feel like, what would you say your percentage was on hitting all the starters? How do you think you did?
Well, I mean, so I wrote that story obviously before we went, and I did it largely based off your projections too, because we had pretty much the same thing. I think the only place we had Graciela listed ahead of McClellan, and we had Zion Young and Eddie. We had Zion Young clearly ahead of Eddie Kelly. That is an or on the depth chart. I don't really think it's an or in real life. I think Zion Young is going to take the first series.
I haven't. Anytime we've been at practice, Zion Young is always the first team defensive end opposite Johnny Walker. Like, I haven't seen Eddie Kelly take first team reps. That doesn't mean he hasn't. We only see 40 minutes of practice, but we don't typically see that. I think, the Marquise thing, just because the last week or so, he's the one getting talked up. He's the one we saw taking the first team reps and things like that. Like that's kind of the big thing. In punt return, they got Luther Burden as the starting punt returner, and then Drink said, well, Daniel Blood or Speedy Johnson or Theo Weiss any one of them can do it based on situation and how fresh they are. Even though it says Luther is the starting punt returner, I still see it as if they're going by who's the freshest, it's probably going to be Daniel Blood because he's not going to probably play at wide receiver as much as the other ones.
I got a theory on this.
Go ahead.
I think they're going to give Luther some opportunities to return punts in these first few games in hopes that
where you going?
The light bulb comes on, because he's not winning the Heisman Trophy if he doesn't do that. And look, I don't think he's probably winning the Heisman Trophy anyway, but he's not even a candidate if he doesn't do that. Like even Devontae Smith during the monster receiver year he had returned punts. He had a punt return for a touchdown that year. You have to do something besides just be a wide receiver to get in that conversation. It would obviously be very good for Missouri if he was in that conversation. Now, I don't think they're going to force it. I don't think they're going to, put him out there if he's not the guy for the job. But let's be honest, against Murray State, against Buffalo, hopefully even against Boston College and Vanderbilt, one punt return shouldn't really be that big of a deal. Even if you put a guy out there who fumbles one, you ought to be able to overcome that. So these are the games where, hey, let's see how he does. Let's see if he's better at it than he was last year. And if he's better at it than he was last year, then we've really got something, and then we can hype him up, and here we go.
Do you think throughout when conference play starts, they'll keep him in a starting role, or will it become like a Tyreek Hill situation, or do you think they pull him overall?
I think it could be I think it depends first off on how the first 4 games go. But if he does it well, I think it's a pick your spots. I don't think it's an all the time, but I think it's a twice, 3 times a game, maybe, as opposed to, 6, 7 times a game. I want to throw up, again, we never ask for super chats, always appreciate them. And we promise we'll put your comment or your question on the show if you do it. Eric Wilper, appreciate you, man. Says, will Mizzou keep the offense as vanilla as they did last year in the non-conference? So this is the unanswerable question, right? I tweeted out the quote from Drinkwitz today. Somebody asked him, is there any thought to just kind of keeping it basic and not giving too much away in the first couple of weeks and not giving your guys too much and all that? And he said, absolutely not. We're trying to win the game. Well, that's what he said last year too. But I tweeted that out and everybody immediately goes, yeah, I don't believe that. Because in their minds, the first 2 weeks last year, Missouri, I hear this phrase when they talk about the Chiefs and it cracks me up. They didn't run the good plays in the first 2 weeks, right? They just ran the plays that were going to win, and then they ran the good plays against Kansas State. And look, I actually think there is some truth to that. I think they held back. I don't think they unloaded the playbook. I questioned the intelligence of that sometime around the fourth quarter when Middle Tennessee was at midfield in a 4-point game. I think maybe they could have used one of the good plays earlier than they did. But I don't think you use more than you have to use.
Yeah, I and the what he said, what he meant article that dropped in, an hour or 2 ago. I touched on this and I said it was partially true what Drink said, and it's partially he's leaving a lot of room out there. So basically what's true is he said they're not going to run plays they don't think they can execute. Correct. A coach would not run anything to put his team in a bad spot. However, plays are in the playbook for a reason. You think you can run all these plays, hence why they're in the playbook. Now, you may have more confidence in a play in week 8 than you do right now, and I get that considering it's fall camp and all that stuff. But yeah, sure, they're not going to hold back. They want to win, but it's Murray State, it's Buffalo. To be honest, you shouldn't be needing to use those plays. If you're using those plays, something is going wrong, and that shouldn't happen. So there's some truth where they're going to hold, they're going to play to win, but at the same time, they're going to reserve something, because why would you put something on tape for Oklahoma, Alabama, Texas A&M to see if you don't need to,
So 2 points. Jason Franken says last year before K-State, there were no deep passes. Probably right. I honestly don't remember. All I remember is after that Middle Tennessee game, we were on the live show going, Tell me how this offense is different than last year, because I don't see it. So I agree with Jason's point, but it goes back to something you said. You do what you're confident your team can execute. Anybody remember that offensive line in those first 2 weeks? Because that was not the offensive line they had later in the season. It was the same guys, but they weren't like Cameron Johnson was a part-time starter. There were false starts all over the place. That group was not playing well. Like Brady was having to run around a lot in the first 2 weeks. Now they got to be really good, but that was not a really good offensive line the first 2 weeks. I'm not sure Kirby Moore and Eli Drinkwitz trusted the line to hold up long enough to let Brady go deep in those first couple games.
Partially true, but I think they was partially holding back because we didn't see Speedy as much. Getting those reps, we didn't. Yeah, and like Jason said,
that's another thing. Like he was a true freshman.
Yeah,
he probably wasn't ready.
But my thing is, you would probably throw a true freshman if you know you're going to play this guy. You're not waiting until big game versus a top 20 team to do it to really show him off, unless you are holding back. So it's give and take. But I do get your point because I was just looking the other day, and I don't remember this, but Javon Foster, I think he led the team in penalties with 10 penalties. Cameron Johnson, I think he had, close.
Cameron Johnson was a machine the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season. He picked one up every game.
By the bye week, I remember looking up, he was leading the nation. And then he only had 2 after the second half of the season. So like you said, they cleaned it up, but those penalties, they were racking them up.
Yeah. And so one other point on that. Going back to what we were just talking about. If you really want Luther to be a part of this conversation, you're taking a couple shots to him deep in these games. You're doing it. I mean, because this is where you pad numbers. Look, you're not going to have 12 for 230 probably very often in the SEC. But you might have 12 for 230 on Thursday night. And in the end, nobody cares where they came from.
They just got to play it smart. Well, with all things, you don't want to be making too much of a Heisman, campaign, and you risk even losing, even if it's for a week. You don't play with fire just to run the score up. But definitely, this is the time to let them do all that stuff.
100%. And Sean says this week should be Nate Noel left, Nate Noel right, and I'd throw some Marcus Carroll in there. Yeah, look, if you can get out of this game and never put Brady in harm's way, I think that's the big thing about the deep throw is all it takes is one missed block. And look, I mean, Florida State, and we're going to talk a little about Florida State here in a minute, but you know who they lost their playoff bid against last year? It was an FCS team because somebody blew a block and Jordan Travis got hit in their FCS game. It wasn't Clemson, it wasn't Notre Dame, so it can happen in any game. So when you're throwing deep, it takes 5 or 6 seconds. Maybe that's another reason you don't really do it, right? Like I'm not trying to get Brady Cook dinged up. And hey, if he gets hurt diving for a first down against Texas A&M, so be it. Like there are times where you risk it, but not in the month of September. You play everything very safe with that kid.
Absolutely. Now, hopefully you would think with this line, which I remember asking Dalen Carnell earlier, can the safety group be even better, even though they lost the NFL talent in Jalen Carlton? I kind of feel the same way as far as the offensive line. Like, you lose a all-American left tackle, and Marcus Bryant, we don't know if he's all-American but that's a good replacement. And then Caden Green is probably going to be a upgrade over Xavier Delgado. So if you balance that out, like, can the line be better? And if Brady Cook is taking any type of shots these first couple of weeks, I would just have questions a little bit, not substantial questions. They'll get better, I would guess, but you would just be thinking, you can't stop the 230-pound defensive end or whatever the case may be.
Exactly. So let's hit a couple more depth chart questions. Then we got a couple other things I kind of want to hit on tonight. Tommy's wanting to know, looking at the depth chart, the defensive end room has a lot of guys. How many of them will actually play? I mean, they've got 7 names listed at defensive end. Let's just run through them. Johnny Walker, I think he's going to play. You think?
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Yeah. Joe Moore will see the field some. Zion Young's going to play. Eddie Kelly's going to play. So we're really talking 3 guys here: Ja'Kai Lang, Jaylen Brown, Williams Nwaneri. How many of those guys would you say play I don't want to say meaningful because they're the numbers 5 through 7 defensive ends. So I'm not sure any of them play super meaningful snaps, but how many of them would you say see the field in kind of in something before garbage time?
I can't give you.
I'd say only Ja'Kai Lang.
He'd be the option, but I still don't think it happens. But if you're saying I have to pick among the three, it'd be him. But I don't know if it happens, to be honest.
I think he is a guy that I think he plays some in these first 4 games, even in the first half, just to keep guys fresh. Like these week 1's a little bit different because like guys have been waiting so long to play that you don't want to give guys like 12 snaps, right? But like that UMass game, like we might see defensive players with like 15 snaps in that game. You know, like Johnny Walker and Christian Williams might go out and sweat a little bit. And then, yeah, come on, let's let these other guys handle this. So I think Ja'Kai Lang could get some snaps. Those other 2 guys, I think it's garbage time unless they just really produce or really develop in practice. And all of a sudden, like you're talking about 2/3 of the way through the year, like at South Carolina, week 10. Oh, hey, this is a guy that's now in the rotation, but I don't think it's early.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. Okay. The other, I don't know. Oh, the other depth chart question we had: Nick Deloach, Toriano Pride listed as an or. Who in your mind takes the second starting role, and who's more of that third corner?
The outside corner is going to be Toriano, so that makes him the CB2 because that's checking his snaps last year. I think he played 8 or 9 snaps in the slot. He's not really a slot guy. That doesn't mean he can't play it here or something, but I just know
I think when he's saying nickel, he doesn't necessarily mean slot. He just means who's the third corner, who's the starter.
I'm gonna still say Toriano, just give him benefit of the doubt. I do think this is a position where on these 2, it could be something where there's a position battle that's still going this first month, basically.
Mhm.
They're still figuring out who is going to be CB2 for real when, the games get a little bit more serious down the line.
I agree with that. I think it'll be Pride, and I've said the reason I think it'll be Pride is real simple. If there is a tie, you probably give it to the transfer guy who like it just makes sense to me, honestly. Like I'm not saying it's political. I think they're both going to play. I'm just saying if there's a tie, I think maybe it probably leans toward Pride a little bit.
Well,
All right, so
right.
Go ahead. No, you're good.
I was just gonna say it's one of those things that if you're a new guy, like Deloach, as far as like not really playing, you gotta outright win it. You can't be like, oh, we're same class, and like you said, they'll probably give the nod to Toriano.
So I had a couple other things I want to hit on, and we will get to them in just a minute. But I do want to make this this breaking news special announcement for the future of the PowerMizzou.com live shows. So we've set up. I just tested this out. We've set up a thing. We have set up a page at SpeakPipe. What SpeakPipe is it literally that link right there on your phone, and every Saturday, or in this case on this week Thursday, I'm going to post this on the message board. I'm going to remind you at halftime. I'm going to remind you right after the game. If you go to that speakpipe.com/PowerMizzou, and when I post the link or tweet the link, it's like all you'll have to do, obviously, is click it. But what you will be able to do is leave us a voicemail. So what we're wanting is like, hey, man, it's halftime. Missouri's down 27-6 to Murray State. How you feeling? Unload right on the voicemail. And so what we're going to do on the post-game shows, we will play those. Now, if somebody really wants to go do it now, I've got SpeakPipe open. It'll be here. I might play it if you think you got something we're saying. But this is mostly going to be a game day thing for the post-game shows. It's also going to take a little off Jarod's plate because I make Jarod come on for every post-game show, but like he's got a ton of stuff to write after the game. So if I can keep Jarod for 30 minutes and then I can hang out with you guys and listen to your celebrations or your ranting and ravings, and hey, a bad word might slip through there. We get it. These things happen, right? Maybe some drunk people call in. Maybe Cat Fax gets on the air again. Who knows what's going to happen? But it is a way to get your guys' voice on the post-game show, but also relieve a little bit of just the mass chaos of like 10 phone lines crossing and live calls. And it's just not something that really we can handle, especially when we're doing shows live from a press box. So that's speakpipe.com/powermizzou. You're going to be able to leave us what you want to talk about there. We'll still have the comment feed, everything during the post-game show. And if you do it that way, you can do it that way. But like if you're walking out of the stadium and you want to say how awesome Luther Burden is, or you want to be angry about this call Drinkwitz made, you can leave us a message there. We're going to play a bunch of them on the post-game show this year. We got a producer helping us out with that show. So just wanted to bring your guys' attention to that. And we'll remind you on the boards and on Twitter and those things. But
Gabe, I got
all
a
right,
question. Is there any rules to the voicemails?
Not specifically. I mean, we ask that you keep it as clean as you can, because if some words slip through here and there, we're okay. If we suddenly have 15 F-bombs on the show, we're probably going to get in trouble from YouTube and kicked off. So we don't want that to happen. So we're going to do the best we can to screen them, but we're going to ask people to keep it clean. The second rule is, look, if you go on for more than like 2 minutes, we're probably not going to put it on the show. Like, make your point, say what you want to say. If we look at it and it's a 4.5-minute voicemail, we're probably not playing it.
Honesty. That's a good one.
Yeah. So, all right. So here's kind of the next thing I wanted to get to. And we're going to expand this over 4 weeks. And I get, like, they're playing Murray State. I mean, Drinkwitz said it today. Playing Murray State on Thursday night is harder than playing Alabama in 2020 to open the season. Toughest opener he's had here. So we get it. Playing national champions on Thursday night, huge game, all that. But we can look past Murray State. Is there anything, like, what do you want to learn about this team in September? What do you think you can learn about this team in September?
I guess the biggest thing is, how quick can those the sluggishness, the sloppiness, how quickly does that dissolve? Considering, last week they were talking about how this was the hardest fall camp in the Drinkwitz era and how they've had more reps, how they've had more tackling. Drinkwitz talked about it today, that those are some, penalties, turnovers, tackling, stuff like that. College football teams usually start the year kind of slow with those things. How quickly can they eliminate and mitigate those things? Is that week 2 or 3 where they feel like they're cleaned up, or does it take them until after the bye week when they get to Texas A&M where they feel like this is, I guess, their normal? So I guess that's the big thing. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sure I'm missing something easy. I can't think of somewhere I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to learn this from watching them play Murray State in Buffalo.
Right. I would say, like, I don't expect to really learn anything. I hope to see them absolutely dominate these teams up front. Line of scrimmage, right? That's where the difference should be. Like, there might be a freak play here and there. They might have one good athlete who gets loose in the secondary, all that. But up front, both sides of the line of scrimmage, Missouri should kick these next 2 teams up and down the field without question. Really, I think they should the last 2 also in September, but especially the first 2. Like, we agree there's a degree of difficulty difference between the first 2 games and the last 2 games of September.
Yeah. Boston College and Vandy, I mean,
they're like actual Power 4 teams.
Yes.
One of them, at least.
They're both Power 4. Let's say they're bigger than the first 2 opponents. That was the question.
Yeah,
There's a distinction.
You're talking like week 1 is like a, let's say, D- level. Week 2 is probably like a D plus C- level.
D.
Well, I'm talking about just like overall. I'm not talking like Power 4. Like,
okay.
There are worse teams out there somewhere, for sure.
Yeah.
And then then week 3 and 4 is probably like that C+ level. If you're talking all of the teams they could play.
To be honest, I think Boston College is a bigger game than Vandy. And
I do too. Yeah.
Obviously, it doesn't mean
there's more threat of losing it to me.
There we go. Obviously, the Vandy is more important. Don't kill me and say I don't know about the conference and all that. The Vandy one's important, but just game by game, yes, the BC one seems like, oh, that's something.
All right. Here's one. Other than Brady Cook, who's the one guy who has to stay healthy for Missouri to be successful?
Brett LeBlanc. I'm done.
He's the long snapper, guys.
No. It's Luther, but I'll give you
Is it though?
Here's I was gonna say Marcus Bryant. I know they got Javen Richardson, but like your left tackle that you brought in and stuff, like you would like that guy to be healthy and play. You can like a backup or a guy you're saying, oh, they're competing well, but if there's a clear distinction who won the battle in fall camp, which was in the first week, which Marcus did, I don't know if you want to risk seeing him play once that SEC schedule comes around, if something happened to Marcus Bryant. So.
I'm going to go like a slash here. I'm going to go Johnny Walker / Christian Williams. I don't think you want to lose either of those guys on that defense. Like and I know it sounds dumb to say it's not Burden because he's the best player on this team, but I agree with Jason. Like, if that means Marquise Johnson or Josh Manning plays some extra snaps or Mekhi Miller plays some extra snaps, like I don't think wide receiver falls off a cliff. I mean, if Luther gets hurt, sure, the ceiling goes down, but the floor is still really high in that room.
Yeah.
If Christian Williams or Johnny Walker gets hurt, to me, the floor is lower at defensive line.
That's fair enough. And I agree generally with the Burden thing, but when I'm thinking at Missouri with the season haven't not started for them at least, they're thinking CFP. If he gets hurt, can this team make the CFP without him? We're already kind of saying it's in with him. So I'm thinking specifically about the CFP, not if they go 9-3 or have a good season. I'm thinking just more so about that.
Okay. If he is healthy and they beat Texas A&M, and then he gets hurt at some point after that, can they split Alabama, Oklahoma without him? I think they can.
Okay, yeah.
I think they could win one of those games without him. And again, that's not minimizing. It's just wide receiver to me, it's really like one of the positions that I think it's harder to impact a game on your own. But also, again, it's just Missouri has a lot of guys there. It's not we were just talking with James at the beginning of the show. We both put it 1 or 2 in the rooms you've got the most confidence in. And is part of that because Luther's there? Yes. But part of it is because they got a lot of other dudes too.
Yeah. I think wide receiver is a good spot if you don't want any injuries, but if there's a room that could afford one, that'd be it. So,
yeah. All right. So talking about what we can or can't learn about Missouri, and we don't think there's a lot, but like, look, guys, there have been actual college football games. I mean, really only 1.5. No disrespect, Montana State. No disrespect, Hawaii. I didn't watch either of those games. I did watch a decent amount of the SMU Nevada. The big one, obviously, Florida State, Georgia Tech. So through 1 to 4 football games, what did you learn in week 0?
I learned
a very clear lesson for Missouri fans in week 0.
Which is don't get ahead of yourself.
There are even the teams that you don't think are a threat in these Power 4 leagues are going to beat someone. Like Mississippi State is going to win a game somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Arkansas has a pretty good chance to beat somebody somewhere. Oklahoma is a very good football team. They may not win 10, but they're going to be the reason somebody doesn't go to the playoffs. Same with A&M. Auburn, like Georgia Tech's not a bad football team. And I saw a lot of people saying, yeah, Georgia Tech probably covers. But like
Yeah,
I
I didn't
watched
see.
game day yesterday, and the only person that picked Georgia Tech to win was I don't know, is that dude a wrestler?
Famous. Yes, he
Yeah,
is.
like all these. I mean, it was like, well, it's Georgia Tech. They can't beat Florida State. We got to quit doing this by the name on the front of the jersey, guys. If you play in a Power Four league, you are good enough to beat somebody. I mean, look at Missouri. Even when Missouri has struggled lately, like they have won some games, they've beaten some teams, right? Don't. So my point is, don't go in, count, and win. Yes, you can count the next three, like or next two, like they're going to be 2-0. All right, go count those. I don't care. But Boston College, Vandy, every game after that, except for UMass, go ahead and like count them up in your head and say, here's what we need to do. That's part of the fun of it. I'm just saying they are all losable football games on the right day. Like Florida State might beat Georgia Tech 7 or 8 times out of 10, but it doesn't matter because they only play one time. And the one time they played, Georgia Tech was a flat out better football team.
Yeah, shaking my head. I don't feel bad. These aren't my teams. None of these are my teams. So I don't feel bad. I was just gonna say DJU. You hate to you hate to see the promise just kind of look so mid average.
But like I was listening to, and I'll give credit, I was listening to the Cover 3 podcast this morning, and they did a reaction show, and one of the guys on there is actually a kind of big Florida State guy. But like they said, why would you have watched that game and been surprised? Like, did you think DJU was suddenly going to be something he's never been in 48 college football games? Nobody should have been surprised by that.
I thought they could pull that game out because I remember after they went 8-0, I said in the group chat, of course, I wanted it to be irrational I don't get to be irrational about college football too often because it's our job, but I was just like, Florida State finna walk them down for the rest of the game. And then Georgia Tech came back and I was just like, just kidding. Florida State's offense looked okay that first drive. Their defense didn't look that great. And it was I got a question for you. Something else I was thinking. I know this is random, but sorry, look at this. I know it's random, but how do you think stuff like this impacts Missouri? Like,
I mean, I don't know yet that it does, right? Because here's the thing. Like Florida, it was a bad weekend for Florida State. But here's the beauty of it. The margin got slimmer, but like their season's not over. They lost the conference game. If they go win the rest of them, they're going to get in the playoff. And they don't even actually have to win the rest of them. Go win 10 of the last 11, get in the conference title game, win that, you're in the playoff. Like the beauty of this system now is that if this was last year, Florida State's season is probably over. Like they're really probably playing for nothing if this is last year. Because if you have a loss in the ACC, you're not making the top 4, right? Now they can go make it. So I don't know if it impacts Missouri because the biggest change we see in rankings is going to be from like week 0 to week 2. Like, what if Texas A&M goes out and beats Notre Dame by 3 touchdowns? Well, guess what? Texas A&M might be 20th right now, but they're probably going to be in the top 10 if that happens, and they're going to jump Missouri because there's nothing Missouri can do against Murray State that would tell anybody they're better than Texas A&M. Like, if Texas A&M goes and does that against Notre Dame, they should jump in the top 10.
Yeah, I'm just more so thinking of it from a Florida State, they were 10. Obviously, Mizzou's 11th. Florida State already on their resume. If it just happens to come down to it,
Right.
in December, you've got a loss versus Georgia Tech. And if Missouri's losses are from, to whatever their losses are, if those losses are to people teams we think, yeah, that's an actual possibility of losing to a decent team, they'd get they'll probably get the leg up in that situation.
Yeah. So yes, it definitely hypothetically can help Missouri. Doesn't help Missouri yet, but certainly like the more teams that are ranked in Missouri's neighborhood that lose, definitely the better for Missouri. No doubt about it. Jason says Florida State got ranked 10th because of last year. Look, everybody is ranked where they are because of last year right now. I mean, that's why preseason polls are stupid. What do we know about any of these teams, right? I mean, I looked at Missouri's defensive depth chart. There's like 11 transfers on it. How do we know if this defense is better, worse, or the same as last year? We don't. Missouri is ranked 11th because they were 11-2 last year, and some of those guys come back. The recruiting has something to do with it. It's not just completely off last year, but like, go find me somebody who sucked last year who's in the top 15. Is there anybody? I doubt it.
All right.
That's what we do. We base it on last year because last year is all we have to base it on. So the point is, like, we spend 9 months, 8 months talking about all this, and then one game in, we go, oh, hang on, maybe we didn't know what we thought we knew.
Wait, hold on. Someone said they can't. Can they not hear us?
I've only seen one comment. If you guys for some reason can't hear, let me know. But like, we've heard no comments throughout the show. I think, Mark, this is probably an issue on your end. I think you've got something turned down. I don't know. Everybody else seems to be able to hear. So, Mark, I apologize, but this is probably an issue on your end. Okay. So after that brief little thing, I don't know if I told you we were maybe going to talk about this. So I'll kind of go first on a couple of these. But this week is the first full week of college football. Like, last week was fine. Florida State, Georgia Tech was cool. I watched a little of SMU, Nevada. Nevada just it was one of the worst. Did you watch any of that game?
The only one I watched was the Georgia Tech game.
I watched the second half of SMU, Nevada. It was truly one of the worst played football games I've ever seen on both sides. Like, SMU was awful and was down 24-13 with 8 minutes left. And then Nevada gagged it and lost the game in large part because up 24-21, they fair caught a punt or a kickoff in the end zone, but the kid dropped it when he fair caught it, and then he covered it up at the 2. So Nevada got the ball at its own 2 and had a safety. So it turned 24-21 into 24-23, and they ended up losing the game in part because it was a horribly played football game, but it was fine. But like, it was an appetizer. So this is the first full week. Mm-hmm. So look, Thursday night, we're probably not going to see any other football games because we will be over at Throw Field by 5 or 5:30. We won't leave there till probably 2 a.m. So we're not seeing any of the other games. I'm looking at the schedule. I would be interested in seeing North Dakota State at Colorado. I have some interest in that football game. Anything else on Thursday night? I don't know if you've got time to or have the schedule pulled up, but anything else on Thursday night that, like, if you weren't at Throw Field, catches your attention?
No.
North Carolina, Minnesota is at least hour 4, but I don't really care.
I mean, I've got something up, but that was just showing me top 25. Let me see where we got now. Okay, now that I'm looking at it, these aren't piquing my interest right now.
Yeah. There's not a lot of good ones. If you are a super diehard, Lafayette's at Buffalo at 6 o'clock on ESPN Plus. If you want to watch the first half of that game and get a sneak peek at Missouri's next opponent, the Lindenwood Lions are playing in Kansas. That would be a truly awful game. I can't imagine a reason to watch that. There's really nothing else Thursday. Friday night, like Temple at Oklahoma. Florida Atlantic at Michigan State, TCU at Stanford late. I guess is like two mid-level.
There's no games that's going to be on Thursday that's going to be making me say, "Damn, I got to work."
Yeah, but Saturday. Now Saturday's going to be Saturday. There's some good stuff, man. Okay. So, like, if you can only watch one game on the first full football Saturday, which game are you watching that's on Saturday?
I'm looking right now. There is some good ones. The first one that, of course, catches my eye is Georgia Clemson. That's just what's popping up. I haven't seen all of them yet. I'm trying to look. Oh, Notre Dame, Texas A&M. Notre Dame, Texas A&M.
Yeah, It's those are the two best ones. Just from kind of an entertainment, not sure what's going to happen standpoint, I would be interested in watching Miami and Florida. I wouldn't watch them over those other two, but Miami against Florida is a good game. But yeah, I think those two are the clear headliners, and in Georgia, Clemson, and A&M Notre Dame, and A&M Notre Dame's obviously impacts Missouri. Sunday, USC LSU. Monday, Boston College, Florida State. I think if you're a Missouri fan, you want Boston College to win that game.
Yes. Let's make that what's that, the strength of schedule or whatever, or whoever they
because
beat.
A, it helps the strength of schedule, and B, it like Florida State's done if they lose that. If they lose that game, Florida State over.
Knockout punch,
like everybody might opt out.
Yeah. So
Mike Norvell might opt out. He might be calling Alabama and going, "Hey, is that offer still on the table? Can I still come up there?"
I will say that USC LSU game, if that was on Saturday, that's a really good game. But I appreciate it being on Sunday, considering this is the last weekend without
that's non-NFL Sunday
NFL football, and then we can really lock in, Gabe.
I think that's really good. Like, college football has stretched this thing out over 5 days, Thursday through Monday. There's games every day, and there's at least one really good one every day.
Monday's
the BC Florida State game.
Oh, okay. I didn't even see that. I thought that was also Sunday. BC Florida State. Are they doing this a lot for Monday?
They've done it like the last 2 or 3 years. Like,
I remember Sunday games, but Monday.
Yeah, they've had a few Thursday, a few Friday, a bunch Saturday, then usually 1 or 2 Sunday and 1 Monday for the last couple of years.
Okay,
just kind of because, like you said, it's the last Sunday and Monday without NFL football.
That makes sense. And then what's the Mountain West? That's going to be. I know they're going to have a lot of games on Fridays. I think it's them who's got that going on. I know they got to do TNT. I believe it is. So, are you going to stay up and watch that Mountain West? You're not going to stay up for no Mountain West.
I'm not going to say the chances are high, man.
I get it.
It's got to be a really good game to keep me up past about 10:30. So.
I got you.
All right. So, look, we'll predict a score later in the week. How about this? For this to finish up on, who scores Missouri's first points on Saturday?
Let's give it to Noel. Or no, let's give it to Carroll. Let's give it they're at the goal line. They let him take it in. Carroll.
All right, my answer is going to be less popular than yours. Blake Craig.
That was
right
my
inside the 20, stall out. Blake Craig kicks a field goal.
Now, I actually had a question about Blake Craig. What's the ideal field goal attempt to kind of let him get the jitters out for you, where it's not too easy, but also you don't want to give him a 55-yarder as his first attempt on the season?
Go give him a 35, 40-yard. Get inside the 20, give him about a 35-yard.
That still seems like a chippy.
I mean, it should be,
but
it's not an extra point.
Yeah, I don't know, somewhere in that 40 to 45 range.
You ever try to kick a 35-yard field goal?
Gabe, I'm not an SEC kicker. They're not.
You ever try to throw a pass after having jet lag and flying to Ireland?
No, but Haynes King, he did it. That's the answer, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah. No, I like if you give him like a 30 to 40 yarder, that it's enough to test him, but like also he should make it. So that's ideal to me.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. We'll take it for now. Do you think he even kicks any field goals on Thursday?
Yes, I think he kicks one on the first drive.
Oh, you really meant? I thought.
No, I really mean that. I think that's their first points on Thursday night.
Okay, and you think that's going to go over? Well, what game ends 3-0, Missouri?
No, I think we're going to get some I think we're going to get some voicemails on speakpipe.com/PowerMizzou about it. But, No, I don't think those are going to be the only points. I just think they're going to be the first points.
All right.
So. All right. So guys, this week's obviously a little different because they play on Thursday night. Normally during the week, we're going to come to you live on Monday nights, probably kind of wrap up last week, start to look to next week. Then Tuesdays we'll have media day and all that. But this week got changed up a little bit because of the Thursday game. Jarod's going to have a full notebook tomorrow. I'm starting a series here on YouTube every week. I'm going to talk to somebody that covers the opponent. This week on Tuesday, I'm going to talk to Murray State play-by-play guy, Neil Bradley. We're going to have him on the show on Tuesday to give you guys a little idea about the racers, because I can't do it because I don't know anything about them. So I'm going to have to ask Neil to tell us about him. Jarod's got a story coming up on Toriano Pride later this week, and we are less than 96 hours from kickoff. So we're almost there, man.
Almost there. And then, like I told you yesterday, I'm saying that now, but then I'm going to say this again after the bye week. We're almost there to the real,
real
season.
We're almost to the preseason, but hey, like we are going to have actual real things to react to and to complain about 96 hours from now. So that is a victory in my book. Another victory. All you guys hanging out here with us all night long. Appreciate it. Again, James Carlton joined us at the beginning of the show, but I do want to remind you, get in touch with him. CarltonInsurance.net, 314-961-4800, Facebook.com/Carlton Insurance. James is handling my insurance stuff. Phenomenal job. I mean, very attentive. Whole process took seriously an hour to get everything switched over. So if you get in touch with James and you tell him you heard about it on Power Mizzou, he's going to do, like he said, he's donate $20 to NIL, and hopefully he's going to help you out as well. So get in touch with James, like, comment, subscribe. If you're listening on the podcast, share it on social media, and we'll be around all week. Leave us some voicemails, whatever. Get your hot takes fired up, guys. Season's almost here. Talk to you next time.